I like the idea of an offensive coordinator calling the plays. I think the head coach has a lot going on in a game, and especially if you're not a very, you don't have a lot of experience as a head coach, which Nick certainly doesn't. I think it maybe helps to have that off your plate a little bit. I think Steichen made it clear to us last week that, if Nick wants something, he just says, hey, we need to do this. It's not like he's divorced from the play calling. It's just that he's not, consumed with it. He's able to sort of look at the whole team and what's going on, and maybe maybe that will help.
Yeah, your Mac here on Bird 365, kind of a countdown Tuesday, countdown to the first game of the regular season, countdown to the opening of camp, countdown to Les Bowen joining us here on Birds 365. Oh, we've achieved touchdown.
Yeah.
Les Bowen in the house. How are you this morning, Mr. Bowen?
I'm great, guys. I'm sorry. I kind of forgot. But I'm here now.
I hear you. I forget every day, Les. Jody's got to remind me. Good to see you. Hopefully see you tomorrow as well.
Yes.
Les, I guess we'll start out with the play calling, and then I want to go to the front office to you as well, because you and I think, in the same boat trying to figure out this personnel, the scouting side of it. But before that, last year, Nick Sirianni really gave up the play calling to Shane Steichen about mid-season. I think this is kind of bold to it was a little bit underplayed though last year. Collaborative, we're all together. And this year they flat out have said Shane's going to be the play caller. And I think that was a bold move by Nick Sirianni for this reason. He's a very young coach. He was brought in to be a play caller, an offensive mind, and all of a sudden he doesn't last a half season. And oh, by the way, when he was calling the plays, the team stunk, and when he wasn't, the team was good. And that's not his fault. I'm not trying to say that, but people lose out in the context. And, the least common denominator is going to say, well, they ran the ball, Nick wouldn't run the ball, and all that kind of thing. How bold do you think this move is for Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, I agree with you in everything you said, John. I like the idea of an offensive coordinator calling the plays. I think the head coach has a lot going on in a game, and especially if you're not a very, you don't have a lot of experience as a head coach, which Nick certainly doesn't. I think it maybe helps to have that off your plate a little bit. I think Steichen made it clear to us last week that, if Nick wants something, he just says, hey, we need to do this. It's not like he's divorced from the play calling. It's just that he's not, consumed with it. He's able to sort of look at the whole team and what's going on, and maybe maybe that will help. Last year was really strange, and I didn't know what to make of the way the thing went with the play calling. It was a little bit like the Phillies, the Phillies are playing a little better now with Girardi fired, but they're also playing teams that aren't as good. They were playing teams like that were really, really good, and they were getting killed. That was kind of how the Eagles season was to me a lot. A lot of that early season stuff was against the better teams, and then when they started doing better in the second half, it tended to be against worse teams. And, they got to the playoffs and it looked pretty much like it looked early in the season to me. I don't know. I don't know if Steichen, I think the whole staff kind of needed to see the team, in action because they don't really play starters in preseason games anymore. I think there was a lot of feeling out last year with everybody. I don't know if Steichen would have done anything differently early in the season. But it is interesting. I don't have a great sense of Steichen as a play caller, as a person. He was pretty
guarded.
Guarded last year. Yeah. He wasn't much of a personality to us. And I want to know more. I'm interested in this subject. I'm not ready to say, a lot about it because I just don't know him, and I don't know what he wants to do. He certainly has. There's no reason why they shouldn't be an efficient, effective offense this year if Jalen Hurts can run that.
Les, I'm going to be really simplistic here, and if I'm overly simplistic, feel free to tell me so. I think this is a good idea because trying to get two guys involved in 40 seconds to go not only make the decision on the play call, send it from the head coach to the offensive coordinator who's up in the booth so that he can then turn around and send it to the player via the headset to the quarterback. And you don't need all that. You only have 40 seconds, and that clock starts fast. As soon as the previous play ends, boom, they start that next clock. I just think that the timing of it is superior if you have one guy handling it. And as Steichen said the other day, if the head coach wants a play called, he'll get it to me quickly enough and I'll get it called. I'm not going to say, no, I'm going somewhere else, Nick. No, he's going to do what the coach says, but just on a play in, play out basis, it's just easier to have the guy calling the play going directly to the quarterback in the time frame you're talking about during a game, isn't it?
Yeah. I think simple is always better. That's certainly true, Jody. And I'm not real thrown by this because I spent a lot of time watching the Eagles under Andy Reid, and Andy, liked to call plays, but things would go stale and he would hand it over to his offensive coordinator. And we would know, he would probably say something during the week about this, Marty's going to call plays this week or something. It was a way to sort of get things unstuck. Other than, firing yourself as the head coach, it's kind of one of the few things you can do to kind of really change the whole temperature of the situation, I guess. To start out the season this way is interesting. It really is. I wonder, I'd love to talk to Nick in depth about that sometime, about, why he knows right now that he wants Steichen calling the plays. I'm sure this is something we're going to get more into in training camp.
Yeah. Hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get into it at least a little bit. And
there's going to be a lot, though, John, of these wrap up things at the end of the spring. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of, what did you see from Jordan Davis? And
I don't mean on the record. I mean off the record. I'm hoping we have an off the record.
I hope so.
And we can get some thought process behind what's going on, but we'll see how it shakes out. I do want to talk about Steichen because he was guarded. Do you think part of it? Now we got him once this year, so he was a little bit better, a little bit less guarded. Do you think part of that is because if you're the coordinator under a head coach that calls the plays, you tend to be a little bit more careful. I think we saw that with Mike Groh. Even with Frank Reich, Frank was a little bit more experienced, maybe could handle it a little more depthly. But, when the head coach is calling plays, are you just naturally more guarded?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I know as a media person, you don't take the coordinator as seriously, in terms of, like, boy, I have to listen to Shane Steichen this week, when he talks, because he's, what's he doing? I mean, if you need a quote about the quarterback or something, that's one thing. But in terms of, you listen to Jonathan Gannon because he's running the defense, right? Yeah. If Shane Steichen isn't running the offense, then it's just another guy that, has some input. If he is running the offense, then you have to kind of, readjust your thoughts on that matter. So I hope Steichen is more of a personality this year, and we get to know more about what he wants to do, what he and Nick want to do. Now that they have some tools for their toolbox, and I think we'll see what kind of offense maybe they want to run. The variable there is Hurts, of course. they might still be constrained by, okay, we'd like to do X, but with Jalen, we probably should do Y. But nonetheless, I think we'll see more than we saw last season.
Les, let me move away from the coaching for a second to go to from the down on the field at the link up into the executive level, where the Eagles made some major changes to the structure of the organization from an executive point of view. Bunch of new hires, bunch of promotions as well. And I know you guys try and find out as much you can about these individuals. They're not made readily available to you guys, right, so you can't get as good a read as you can on the coaches or the players. But just judging by what the Eagles did, has Howie Roseman's power base stayed the same, increased, decreased, the names, the titles, and the like? How do you think Howie comes out of the moves that the organization has made during this offseason? More of a guy in charge or less?
Well, he's certainly not any less in charge, Jody. He's making all these hires. People within the organization who, Jeffrey Lurie had said could be future GMs and Howie said could be future GMs have all left. And so from that standpoint, Howie's not, there's not a lot of internal conflict or potential conflict, I should say, where there wasn't really any conflict, but people there that you could see being GMs have gone somewhere else. So, that's, if you're Howie Roseman, that's very comforting, I guess, in some ways, although he didn't want all of them to leave, but it's certainly, there's nobody on the horizon who's going to take his job anytime soon. The most interesting part, and I think a lot of people have said this, is the rise of analytics in the operation and how with Andy Weidel leaving, there really isn't a football person in the personnel side, at the top level of personnel. It's entirely analytic and administration driven now. And, they have voices, consultants and people below the top level, but not having that person right up there next to Howie, who's, a real traditional scout, is a big change for the organization. And we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, that was the most interesting part to me, Les, was there's nobody on the personnel side, as you mentioned, on equal footing with John Ferrari and Alec Hallaby, who got the assistant GM titles. And it's interesting because whether you believe the Eagles thought they were going to lose Andy Weidel, didn't think they were going to lose Andy Weidel, the fact that they fired his younger brother, whether you can say Tom Donahoe was forced out or retired, we'll see in the coming weeks if he shows up working somewhere else, I guess. Yeah. But, the whole thought process of this with the assistant GM titles, well, we can't lose guys from the personnel side. And yet they go and give it to the football ops people who, in theory, nobody's going to be banging down the door to be GMs, at least, in the near future.
Right.
So you're in the same position where you could start losing your top scouts. Does that part make sense to you at all?
That was puzzling to me, John. I tried to get an answer about that last week, and I never really got one that satisfied me. The premise that we were left with when all these people left in the spring was the Eagles didn't really want all of them to leave, but they had to let them leave because the way the structure was set, they were all below Andy Weidel on the personnel, on the chart, our organizational chart. And in the jobs they were going to, they would be over the personnel chief on the organizational chart. So therefore the Eagles had to let them go. So I tried to get, like last week, when they got this new structure in place, I tried to figure out, okay, is this different now? And, will this not happen now? And the answer I got was, well, those people, we wouldn't have stood in their way anyway, which wasn't what was totally different from what was being said a little while ago.
Les, come on. Let's call it what it is. Throw the BS flag. The Eagles were so put off by it that they lobbied the league to change the rules going forward. Oh no, we were good. We're going to let them leave anyway. No, they weren't. That's baloney.
Yeah,
especially not to the Giants. I think that was a big.
The Brandon Brown to the Giants one was the one that kind of stuck in their craw, understandably so, because and that's why they tried to change the secondary football executive rule, and they got it done, by the way. So moving forward, the timing for hires like that will be a little bit different. That's not going to help the Eagles in the short run. But then there was also this theme, Les, that they didn't want to bring in an outsider and maybe leap them ahead of people who've been in the organization for many years. Because I look at Brandon Hunt, there's a guy who was in the mix for a couple GM jobs. I think not only Pittsburgh, where he used to work, but also Las Vegas. And there might have been another one where he interviewed for. Right. And it's understandable because he got passed over twice by the Steelers. So he probably wanted out of that building. And that's an organization known for continuity. So if they're not going to promote you, that's a red flag. But here, I think his title is director of scouting. I don't know. Do you agree with the thought process of I can't give him VP of player personnel because Alan Walking's been here for a long time, or do you think that's not the way you should be doing business?
Yeah, that doesn't excite me too much. If the people that have been here a long time are really, really good, then you promote them into those positions. And if they're not, then you don't worry too much about their feelings. I mean, that sounds harsh, but the analogy we were given was one of like a locker room where you bring in a bunch of high price free agents and give them jobs over guys that have been working hard who are here. But you do that. I mean, if you have, and the Eagles have done that time and time again. They didn't stick with, after all that talk about the half dozen corners that they had that were all going to be great young players, they went out and signed James Bradbury. No, I'm not thrilled with that logic at all. And I suspect the way this all unfolded over such a long period of time, and there were so many departures and so many moving parts, the hiring season is pretty much over. People who were going to change organizations have done so. I think you're in a position, kind of like you're in a position sometimes with coaching hires, where you say you're happy with what you've got and you're really waiting till next year. And maybe there'll be somebody brought in next year that will be free, who isn't free right now. That's my thought. I don't have a whole lot to back that up, but I would not at all be surprised if that were the case.
Let's get back down onto the field. You guys had some quality grass time last week, so you got to watch some of the Eagles' activities. You got to talk to a couple players as well. Let me zero in on Brandon Graham. Again, can't really judge 7 on something. No pads, no helmets. It's not like it's going to be the first Sunday and second Sunday in September when the season starts, but you could see him moving around. You got a chance to talk to him. Eagles missed him both on the field and in leadership last year. What was your external read on Brandon Graham? How much is he going to be able to contribute to this football team this upcoming season?
We saw nothing last Friday that would tell us anything about that. I mean, it was 7 on 7. There wasn't really any pass rushing or anything like that. He's moving. I mean, he's not limping or anything. He says he's fine. And knowing his dedication and his, work ethic, I'm sure he's done everything he can to be ready. He talked to us once this spring about knowing that he might have to take a lesser role this year just because of the people they brought in. We'll see if that actually happens. I would like to see him go out, on a strong final season. I don't know. We'll have to wait. I think we're a long way from getting that answer, Jody. I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a better one.
Okay. No, I knew it was speculative.
Right.
I just wanted to see if you wanted to speculate for me. If you don't have enough information yet, no problem.
This spring work has gotten less and less useful to us. I'm sure it's more useful to them. But the idea that they aren't even lining up 11 on 11 in these drills,
that's amazing.
Ever,
that's amazing.
It's just not the way it used to be. It used to be in pads. They didn't do a whole lot of hitting or anything, but they put the guys in pads and they lined them up 11 on 11 just to show the rookies, what it looked like.
Yeah. Like landmarks and teaching and it's completely different, Jody.
Yeah.
He is Les Bowen. Follow him on Twitter at Les Bowen. You can read him these days at nj.com. I'll leave you. We started with the offensive play calling. You mentioned the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. We did get to see him a little bit on 7-on-7. He was very sharp, threw the deep ball well. 7-on-7, I always joke, it mattered. Sam Bradford would have a gold jacket, but it doesn't. That said, what do you think about Jalen? Do you see any fundamental improvements? I know Nick Sirianni was talking to Sal Powell, saying he sees better mechanics. He worked out with Tom House and Adam Dado, although I don't know why people won't admit that, but that's where he was in Southern California. Yeah. Do you think these increased mechanics are going to help Jalen Hurts reach that level to where you said if he holds his water, essentially, this should be a good offense?
Yeah, I sure hope so, John. Shane Steichen talked about footwork a lot, and that is crucial. A lot of what we see as arm strength comes down to footwork, especially when you're talking about crisp passes, not just heaving it, 80 yards downfield. I wouldn't say I don't care about that, but I think he does that reasonably well. What I want to see is the lateral cross the field, get there in a hurry, has to go in a tight window over the middle, but along with the footwork, the other problem is decision-making, seeing, okay, the ball's supposed to go here, but that's not happening. And how quickly do you notice this guy over here is open and get him the ball? That was a real problem for Jalen Hurts. And there's no way to know anything about that yet. But he works so hard, and they talk about, in film room study and so forth, him seeing things more quickly. So you have to be optimistic about it at this point. I mean, you have to be optimistic about nearly everything in June. But I really want to see it. It's probably the key to the season. I think we've said on here before, with the parts that they've assembled, assuming decent health, if Jalen Hurts is a Pro Bowl level quarterback this year, they'll definitely make the playoffs and they'll be a contender, I think. So, yeah, that's the key to everything. And there's no discouraging words yet on that front anyhow.
Everybody is banking on looking for an improvement out of Jalen Hurts. I'm going to flip over to the defensive side and ask you about an improvement. Unless I'm on record here on Birds 365, wherever else I jump aboard. I think the James Bradbury signing was big for the Eagles because I think he's a top-level corner, and to be able to get him without having to give anything up because he hit free agency was a big plus for the Giants this year. If you've got Slay and Bradbury both playing top-level cornerback, how does the defensive coordinator take advantage of that? How do you think it will play into his play calling? At times, Jonathan Gannon called on the carpet last year, not aggressive enough.
Yeah.
The results were solid, not spectacular, but solid overall defense for the year. How much does Bradbury's addition, if he can play to the level that he's played to previously, how much better does he make Jonathan Gannon's life?
Oh, I think considerably, Jody. I think offenses can't really hunt out the matchup now, try to get a guy away from Darius Slay. That's not going to be as big a deal, as good a thing. I think Gannon likes zone defenses more than he wants to play man. And I think that's Bradbury's strength. And I think that's one of the reasons Bradbury had kind of an off year last year, was he wasn't really being used to his best advantage. I also think they had a problem with turnovers. They didn't really create enough turnovers last season, and I think Bradbury will help them there. He has good ball skills. Yeah, I think that's a significant thing. I think he and Jordan Davis, and maybe Hassan Reddick, but I think he and Jordan Davis are the two biggest additions. Davis, in that, they had such a problem on first and second down.
Yeah.
Not getting run over and ending up in 3rd and 1, or, even getting to 3rd down sometimes. I think Jordan Davis is going to really plug up that middle, and, you'll see just a more efficient defense overall.
Les, great stuff. We appreciate your hopping in with us. Feel free to hip check McMullen if he starts to intrude on your grass spacing tomorrow when you get down to Eagles practice. We'll talk to you again in a couple weeks. Thanks, buddy.
Well, thank you guys, and I'm sorry I was a little tardy there. I'll come in early next time.
Thanks, Les.
And